This video is presented by mybookie.ag. We got a bit of a cool down card from that last crazy pay-per-view, headlined by Jan Blachowicz and Aleksandar Rakic, which actually is a very important fight for the light heavyweight division. The rest of the card kind of looks like a normal fight night card. Some bangers like Ryan Spann vs Ian Cutelaba, that's definitely going to be a knockout finish. Interesting grappling matches in fights like Davey Grant vs Louis Smolka, Nick Maximov vs Andre Petroski, which is actually one of the fights I'm looking more closely at. Nick Maximov is actually like one of the Diaz brothers' prodigy. He's undefeated, he's a great grappler, he's a big guy, and he's going up against a fantastic wrestler in Petroski, while also being a massive favorite in the fight. He might be one of the only guys in the Diaz brothers camp that can beat a wrestler. You have also other veterans on the card like Michael Johnson going up against Alan Patrick, which is an interesting one. Michael Johnson's definitely over the hill a bit, not in his prime anymore. At one point known as the guy that can compete with the best fighters in the world, now seemingly just trying to hang in the organization. And we also have good contender fights that are important for the divisions like Caitlin Chukagian versus Amanda Ribas. That should be an interesting one as well, and in my opinion the prospect of the whole night is Tatsuro Taira, young 22-year-old from Japan in the flyweight division, undefeated professionally and in the amateurs. He's actually never lost a fight in his life. 9-0 as a professional, 8-0 as an amateur, and he's a super exciting fighter to watch. He has good stand-up and a dangerous submission game. The fighter of the night is definitely going to be the former champion, Jan Blachowicz. If he can get this win over Aleksandar Rakic, who's to say he doesn't get a title shot? I mean, he was a guy that a lot of people thought that was going to be a pretty dominant champion for a little bit. Maybe not super dominant to replicate what John Jones did, but someone that was going to be able to keep the belt. He had a bit of a hiccup with Glover Teixeira. Now he's going up against another top contender, Aleksandar Rakic, who a lot of people are super high on right now. So if he could take out the young contender, there's not a lot of guys in his way to get that second title shot. But he is a bit older. The stake of the night, the fighter that is in hot waters, is definitely Michael Johnson. 0-4 in his last 4 fights. The guy's 35 years old in the lightweight division. He's fought everybody. He's been through wars, been knocked out, up and down his whole career. I mean, he's 19-17, but his record doesn't really tell you how great he actually was. But if he goes on and suffers a 5th loss in a row, and to Alan Patrick of all people, that might be the end of his run in the UFC. Now the banger of the night, the most explosive, fun fight is that co-main event, Ryan Spann vs Ian Cutelaba. That spells knockout all over it. That's all these two guys know how to do. Go forward, land their hands, bomb on their opponent, and get that fantastic finish. There is a chance though that Cutelaba is going to wrestle here. That will mix up the fight a bit because he has done that in the past, but he's mainly known for putting his hands on opponents, showcasing his vicious power. And the fight of the night, in my opinion, is that main event, Jan Blachowicz vs Aleksandar Rakic. This may be a chess match, probably the most technical fight on the entire card, and 100% the highest level fight on the entire card. I would love to have said it would have been Tatsuro Taira against Carlos Candelario, but there's no footage on Candelario, so it's really hard to tell. I know Taira's definitely going to bring on a great fight, so we're going to start off with Nick Maximov versus Andre Petroski, a fight between two grapplers that do implement some striking, mostly with the hands. Nick Maximov will sneak up some high kicks here and there, but he's definitely going to have his hands full in that first round. Andre Petroski's pretty powerful, man. He's a big guy for that division, built like a brick house, and he wants to land that left hand on everybody. His stand-up is not technical at all. He just wings over left hands and hopes it lands. He's mostly a wrestler. I don't know if he wants to take Maximov to the ground because Maximov is a pure Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter who has a very slick back take on his opponents and really good chokes at all angles. Petroski being almost like a pure wrestler in his grappling, he might leave his neck out there sometimes or give up his back, and that could spell trouble in this fight, especially early where they're both going to be pretty dry. But the other issue about the fight is Petroski has poor cardio. Like, this guy gasses out very quickly in fights, whereas Maximov has that Diaz attribute to him. Great cardio, can go all 3 rounds at a very fast pace, constantly attempting takedowns, constantly scrambling, grappling at all times. The guy rarely gasses out. So the longer the fight goes, it's actually going to favor Maximov. Early, Petroski's going to have to defend all the takedowns and land his left hands. If he wants to go to the ground, it would be pretty surprising if he gets the better of Maximov. I mean, there's a reason why Maximov is over a 3-1 favorite. It's almost a 4-1 favorite. I don't think he should be that much because of the level of danger that Petroski presents on the feet, but I do believe a lot of people are looking at that Soriano fight, where Maximov was able to take some of his biggest shots, survive that early first round, and Soriano hits much harder than Petroski does. He's much more dangerous on the feet. And Maximov was able to gas the guy out with constant takedowns and constant scrambling, constantly putting his weight on top of him, and really just rode out the fight into a decision. With Petroski, I could see more of a submission win, so my prediction for this fight, I am going to go with Nick Maximov, and I'm going to go by a 3rd round submission. Both guys are not known for their striking at all. Petroski's a little bit more dangerous, I guess, but there's not much of a technical aspect to the feet as there is with the ground game. And no, I definitely don't think Maximov is that big of a favorite. I definitely am quite confident in him winning as long as he doesn't get tagged early. And then we go to the main event. Jan Blachowicz versus Aleksandar Rakic. For some reason, I love watching these kind of fights. The young versus the old. Can the young guy take over that spot and continue the evolution of MMA? But there's something weird about the light heavyweight division where it's the old guys that thrive. It's the older guys that actually stay on top, where it's not like that with the rest of the divisions. Glover Teixeira and Jan Blachowicz have been destroying the younger fighters here, but I wonder what Rakic can do because he has a different kind of style. Most of the younger guys are a bit reckless with their approach. Rakic is very calculated in what he does. Some people will say he's kind of boring sometimes, where he'll just stay on the outside and do enough with the clinching, with the kicks from far range, with his counter punching, and keep his output at a minimum. And the fact that the fight is going to be 5 rounds, he might play into that game plan even heavier. And it really depends on what Jan Blachowicz is really going to do. But will he be aggressive? It honestly could go many different ways here. These two guys have many different approaches they can take. Jan Blachowicz is known for his counter punching. I mean, his left hook off of exchanges, off of the clinch, is one of the most devastating I've ever seen in the sport. But he's not known to be somewhat of an offensive fighter to that extent. Even with his fight with Israel Adesanya, he would blitz in with like 1 or 2 shots, but nothing really with full power to expose himself because he learned from the Thiago Santos fight. He got dropped by Santos for being a little bit too aggressive, and he could be a bit awkward and almost defenseless moving forward. Even Glover Teixeira actually caught him, and Glover Teixeira is a pretty slow fighter with his hands, much slower than Rakic is. So, and actually that's the same thing with Aleksandar Rakic. He's also not great on the offensive with his hands. He's better as a counter puncher, and what's also very similar about the two is they're both kickers. They both will stay on the outside and kick you while trying to draw you in for their counterpunching. And I hope that doesn't make this fight a staring contest. If Blachowicz gets a bit too aggressive, he can also meet the hands of Rakic from a distance because Rakic is a bit taller. The guy's a monster for a light heavyweight. And the size of his legs, I mean, Blachowicz is really good at checking leg kicks, really good at blocking body kicks as well. And evident from the Adesanya fight, is quick to defend the head kicks as well, even question mark kicks. But there's going to be a difference in power. Nobody Blachowicz has ever fought in his entire career kicks the way Rakic does. This guy tries to cut you in half with his kicks. I mean, the leg kicks he was battering Anthony Smith with were so scary to watch. I mean, he was destroying that man's legs. The speed and the pure power he's able to generate is absolutely terrifying. Blachowicz just definitely have to be keen on those leg kicks and body kicks. And Rakic is not known to be an offensive boxer, not really good on the front foot when it comes to his hands, so there Blachowicz is definitely going to have the advantage in case Rakic wants to get a little bit aggressive. It actually seems like they're both similar with the way they fight from a distance. I believe it might be a bit of a chess match, and some people might say that's going to be boring. But with the takedowns, could Blachowicz actually take Rakic to the ground, who has insane takedown defense? The guy's really hard to get off balance. The only time he's ever been taken down in his entire career was in his UFC debut. He was so young. And yes, Blachowicz is a decent wrestler, but he's not amazing at it. And the thing about Rakic is, he's extremely quick to get into the clinches, tie you up and get the double underhooks, but as we all know about Jan's break away from the clinch. If Rakic is not careful in those disengagements, he might eat a left hand to the face, and that could be it. And looking back at Rakic fighting Thiago Santos, whenever Rakic clinched up with him, Santos was able to break away and land left hooks on him. And Rakic's reaction to it was not great. It always looked like he didn't expect it. So the more I think about the fight, actually, the more it seems almost even. The fact that Rakic is almost a 2-1 favorite, it's kind of mind-boggling. I mean, unless Blachowicz has gotten old overnight, I don't see how Rakic can be that big of a favorite to the point where it's like he should comfortably win the fight and definitely has major advantages in there. He makes many mistakes when it comes to his hands. His boxing's not great. He leaves himself open on the offense. It's his kicks that Blachowicz has to really be worried about, and perhaps his counterpunching in case Blachowicz wants to open himself up. Right, Rakic has these like fading hooks that come out quick at awkward angles, and that's the same vice versa. If Rakic goes forward, he may potentially get countered by Blachowicz. This fight may come down to who kicks better and who can potentially take the other guy down. So ultimately, my prediction for this fight, it's a tough one to call, man, especially with Jan's age. I'm not giving up on him yet. I'm not going to say he's old yet. It possibly could happen, but I'm going to go with Jan Blachowicz, and I'm going to go by a decision win. In the light that he hasn't aged overnight, I believe the clinches are going to be dangerous for him whenever he disengages or it just breaks away from him. And if anybody can defend the leg kicks, it will be Jan Blachowicz. I mean, he slowed down Adesanya with that. Constantly checking them, constantly getting away from them. And with the fact that this is Rakic's first 5-round fight, is another thing that favors Jan Blachowicz. So ever so slightly, I'm going with Blachowicz. I'm going by that decision win. And I really wonder what the odds are for Blachowicz to win by a decision, and even Rakic winning by a decision. Well, the best place to go to find out is mybookie.ag. They have the best lines in the business, and it turns out Blachowicz to win by a decision is a plus 500. That's pretty interesting. He is a knockout artist, but he does have some decision wins, especially when the fight's more technical and not as chaotic. Blachowicz will ride it out to a decision and beat the guy technically. For Rakic to win by a decision is plus 200. It's almost similar to him winning by a finish. But man, I still don't agree with Rakic being that big of a favorite. Unless he surprises me, man. Unless he shows something that we haven't seen from him before. It seems like people are underestimating Blachowicz off of that performance against Glover, or they just think he's too old, and that may be something. And there's other intriguing odds as well, such as Manaribas being an underdog against Caitlin Chookagian. I could see both fighters winning this, but I think I'm gonna be riding with the underdog on this one. Ian Cutelaba versus Ryan Spann, that can go either way. I think having either guy as a big favorite may be a mistake, as they can both land one shot and it's over. I never like having heavy favorites in fights like that. Andra Lee and Viviana Araújo is a pick'em fight, I can agree with that. Nick Maximov being the biggest favorite on the entire card, minus 360. Man, that is something. I wonder what it is him winning by a finish. Plus 150. In my opinion, the way Maximov wins the fight is probably by a submission, but I wouldn't be surprised if he rides it out to a decision instead. Davey Grant's over a 3-1 favorite against Louis Smolka. There's something about Louis Smolka, he's extremely inconsistent. Sometimes he gets absolutely destroyed by guys he shouldn't be losing to, and then sometimes he absolutely destroys guys that he shouldn't be winning against. I've been wrong about Louis Smolka many times. And the rest of the odds I can pretty much agree with. You know what, after looking at these odds, I do have a pretty good parlay going on here. If you guys want to put a parlay together, just match up fighters that you're confident in winning to multiply your earnings. And make sure to sign up with mybookie.ag to get the deposit bonus, where they'll match up your first deposit all the way up to $1,000. You put $50, they'll match that, you get another $50 on top. Just use the promo code WEASEL to activate that offer. That's promo code WEASLE to take advantage of MyBookie's sign up offer. Remember to visit mybookie.ag so you can win big. And I hope you guys enjoyed the predictions, and if you did, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.